Hello, New Paltz. Welcome to Not Quite My Tempo with Chris on WFNP Rosendale. I'm here every Friday at 2 p.m. talking movies, new reviews, recommendations, lists. I just love movies, and that's what I do here. On today's show, I'm going to review Chris Stuckman's new horror movie, Shelby Oaks, rank Jordan Peele's 3 directed movies, and close out the show with my 3 throwback recommendations for this week. I'll be right back with my review for Shelby Oaks, but first here's some movie music, starting with Test Drive by John Powell, from the How to Train Your Dragon score. Welcome back to Not Quite My Tempo with Chris on WFNP Rosendale. Kicking off the show today, Chris Stuckman's directorial debut, Shelby Oaks, hit theaters last week. A woman's desperate search for her long-lost sister falls into obsession upon realizing that the imaginary demon from their childhood may have been real. If you don't know who Chris Stuckman is, he's a movie critic on YouTube, and really one of the earliest YouTube movie critics. He started his channel in 2010 and really helped set the foundation for movie criticism and analysis on YouTube. And he's got over 2 million subscribers now. He's been doing YouTube consistently for years, and I've always enjoyed his reviews. He's got great analysis, has really insightful ways he describes his feelings on a movie and how he breaks it down, and he seems like a really chill kind of guy, always makes watching his reviews really fun and interesting. And over the years, he's talked about his filmmaking plans, and he put out a short film called Notes from Melanie that's on his YouTube channel, and Shelby Oaks has been in the works for a while now. There was a big Kickstarter campaign for it, and the studio Neon distributed it. They've distributed Parasite, Anora, Longlegs, The Monkey, that's a decent horror movie from this year. So it's getting a wide release, which is awesome to see. And now we have the movie. I'm not the biggest fan of the horror genre, but I thought Shelby Oaks was a really tense movie with a thrilling mystery, some great atmosphere and sequences, but falls a little short with its resolution. So as someone that I don't hate the horror genre, I will see horror movies and certainly like to go back and watch some of the classics like Halloween and The Thing, and the Scream franchise is one I really enjoy as well. But there's very few horror movies for me that are like all-time favorites, movies that I have personal attachment to or fond memories of that are meaningful to me. I like a lot of horror movies when I watch them, but the genre doesn't draw me in like some others, and there are specific subgenres of horror that I really enjoy, one of them being slashers like Scream or Halloween, and I also really enjoy creepy investigative mystery movies like Shelby Oaks. From the opening moments with this kind of documentary format, laying out the background and these characters and strange events that are occurring, the movie just had me hooked. There's this mystery that deals with really unsettling stuff like people going missing, strange phenomena that are unexplained but have ties to this abandoned and unnerving town. Other details too that tie in, like the idea of someone going to this creepy place to never return, the idea of a figure looking into your window at night while you sleep, or figures lurking in the background of found footage. It's the kind of stuff you fear as a kid that comes to life in this story, and it's so creepy. That fear of being watched and this whole mystery around what horrible things might have happened is so captivating to me. Your mind starts to make guesses at what happened that have unlimited potential for just awfulness, that you start to feel desperate for answers, and getting this mystery solved, you want to see what happened. There's plenty of details set up in the beginning, as well as some found footage of some of the events that he strikes a strong balance of being suffocating and thrilling, but doesn't give away too much of what is happening too early on. It lets the terror come through, but it makes the exact answers being left unanswered to immediately suck you in and make you want to know what happened. And it sets up this setting of Shelby Oaks as well, and some of its mysterious history, laying down details and clues that become more relevant as the story goes along in this mystery. What horrible events happened in this town? What is still happening in this town that makes it such a scary place? Stuckman does such a great job of making these questions loom, so that anytime a character goes anywhere near that place, you get nervous, you don't know what you're going to see, you might get some more answers, and I felt the perfect balance of being terrified of what those answers would be, but just having to know. And there's some really shocking and tragic moments in the story that capture the confusion and awfulness of this case so well. Something will happen that you're just like why? Why are these awful things happening? What is this thing out there that is tying all this together? Stuckman continues to build on this from the opening. As more becomes uncovered, it leads to other doors being opened that makes the sinister nature of this whole thing feel limitless, and you just never feel comfortable during any of the movie. And the lead here is Mia, the sister of Riley, who is the girl that went missing in Shelby Oaks. She's a pretty compelling lead for this story. Anytime, family members of missing people are the leads of investigation stories like this, there's a connection to the character immediately. They're being motivated by fear of losing a loved one and being obsessed with bringing them home at all costs. So it's a very relatable driving force that makes them engaging to follow. And the creepiness and horror elements and this family motivation work hand in hand together. As dangerous and scary as this whole situation is, and what could be going on in Shelby Oaks is such a mystery, this woman is willing to risk her life and face the terrifying unknown if it means she can help bring her sister back, and you really feel that drive in her. When it comes to other mystery horror movies like this, Weapons from earlier this year had family elements like this as well, especially with Josh Brolin's character and his son in that movie. And Josh Brolin's chapter in that story was some of the most captivating and memorable parts of that movie for me. Giving the horror a human connection too, it's not just effective at being unnerving, you feel the family bond and history as well that makes it much more meaningful. And Camille Sullivan, who plays Mia, brings that desperation and drive to find her sister so wonderfully. The way she throws herself into danger and goes to these great lengths to find her is made so believable and emotional by Sullivan's performance. How she responds to adversity and drawbacks in the case and dealing with local police, she will not rest until she finds her sister, and she is just confident she is out there still. And as it gets into this investigation, the horror elements continue to shine for the most part. The sets that the story takes the characters to are really unsettling, and Stuckman creates such a haunting atmosphere. The settings are fairly typical for movies like this, an abandoned prison, an old mysterious house, but the combination of the lighting, the ominous music, the way the camera work follows characters down these dark corners of these really terrifying places makes you feel like you're right there with them, unsure of what's going to be discovered or where danger may lie in this place. There's a few points where these sequences get a little too jump scare heavy, and there I thought some of them felt a little cheap, but when it really builds these atmospheres and unfolds the story as it goes along, the history and haunted aspects are conveyed so strongly. With these scenes, Stuckman's passion for the horror genre really shines. The way some of these scenes just had me hooked and nervous was so strong and so effective. Now, when it comes to the ending and where everything resolves, I was less happy with that. The way answers are given feels very rushed and a little unclear. I suppose what happens was a place this was all meant to be going, but when it gets there, it feels very quick, especially the final scene. Begins to move very quickly, and what could have been a potentially actually incredibly impactful ending ends up being a little more confusing and condensed more than anything. In particular, the final shot is really incredible, but a stronger build-up was needed in certain parts of the story with some of this history to really make it hit harder. I got to the end, and the investment and tension I felt throughout most of this movie didn't feel fully satisfied by the ending. There's still some things I think should have been answered, some storylines earlier built out a little more, and that final scene could have been super hard-hitting. Because again, Stuckman's camera work, the way he frames some of these shots and sequences to look horrifying and put you in these scenes shows a lot of talent, but the finale did not come together in the most effective way possible from a story standpoint for me. Overall, Chris Stuckman tapped into a horror subgenre I really enjoy and gave a strong directorial debut within it. His passion for horror and for filmmaking really shines here. The fact that this is getting a wide release is just wonderful. I'm very interested in what he plans to do next. The finale didn't fully work for me, and some of the jump scares had too much predictability to them, but Stuckman's ability to craft this mystery with this history and sister family story, getting you engaged in the family bonds, and just getting under your skin with some of these horror ideas and imagery and this creepy mystery made me locked in for every minute in the theater, left me so unsettled. If you like horror, go see Shelby Oaks, especially if you like this kind of small town, creepy, investigative horror. There's so much great stuff in that area here. I really enjoyed this. I give it an 80 out of 100. I'll be right back on Not Quite My Tempo with Chris on WFNP Rosendale, but first here's some more movie music, starting with The Source Code Main Titles by Chris Bacon from the movie Source Code. Welcome back to Not Quite My Tempo with Chris on WFNP Rosendale. Next up today, in honor of Halloween, I'm going to do a horror ranking. Today, it's going to be a ranking of all three of Jordan Peele's directed movies. I watched all of these pretty recently. Like I said earlier, I'm not the biggest horror fan, but there's certainly some favorites I find in there, and I'm always down to try a new horror movie. And Jordan Peele's gotten a lot of acclaim and has seemed like a really interesting horror director since he made Get Out, so I was very interested to watch the movies he's made so far. And I would give a positive score to all three of these movies, but my least favorite of his movies is Nope. This is Peele's most recent movie from 2022. The residents of a lonely gulch in inland California bear witness to an uncanny and chilling phenomenon. There's a few things I think Peele does great in all three of his movies, and one of those is the cinematography and visuals. This movie is beautifully shot with cinematographer Hoyt van Hoytema. It takes place largely in this California desert valley, and there's a number of wide shots tracking movements of like horses and vehicles in these chases, and it captures the speed so effectively, and the magnetism of all of these sequences. In terms of capturing action and pure excitement, this is probably Peele's best effort. And the sunniness and brightness of the sand look really beautiful as well in this California kind of desert setting, and these nighttime shots bring this sci-fi and otherworldly atmosphere to life so well as well. When the characters go outside at night, the light of the stars and moon has the perfect lighting balance to make it look like some unexplainable and freaky stuff is about to go down in this place. And I really enjoy the cast here. Daniel Kaluuya, Keke Palmer, Brandon Perea enhance their characters with their performances, making them a little more interesting. One of my biggest issues with this movie is the shallowness of the characters. The movie seemed like it was setting up a deeper exploration with this brother and sister dynamic and dealing with loss and family drama, but it very quickly abandons that and only sparingly goes back to it at later points in the movie. A big theme of this movie is this idea of popularity and exploiting these phenomena for fame and fortune, and how that can very easily become dangerous. Using this alien sci-fi horror concept as the metaphor to convey that theme. And in that as well, these characters don't convey this thirst for fame and fortune. That aspect of the story just didn't draw me in. This is the least horror of Peele's films. Certainly there's some weird occurrences, dangerous creatures, but what the actual story is, trying to capture a shot, get famous from this, just never grabbed me that much with the story or the characters. It sparsely made me feel thrilled or tense, except in some of the dynamic action shots. Even the third act, the danger that is there, I never felt super connected to the characters or felt the imminence and threat. It's a very big sequence, but one that has a threat that I think is so big it kind of becomes less interesting. It feels less tangible than like a home invasion and some of the relatively grounded elements in Peele's other films, and I just found it less exciting. It definitely has interesting themes. How Stephen Yeun's character is used here and his backstory also presents another perspective on this issue that deals with the Hollywood and showmanship side of the story, and that world the story takes place in. It's a visually beautiful movie. I enjoy the cast, but the story and thrills never drew me in, and the characters failed to get developed beyond the opening minutes. And my second favorite Jordan Peele movie is Us. This is his second movie. In order to get away from their busy lives, the Wilson family takes a vacation to Santa Cruz, California. At night, 4 strangers break into Adelaide's childhood home. The family is shocked to find out that the intruders look like them. This is much more of a horror movie than Nope is, more similar to his debut with Get Out, and I definitely don't think it's even close to as good as Get Out, but Peele's talent is still on display here. In terms of the horror, this movie has some very thrilling sequences. It's a home invasion story, with this added twist element of the intruders being other versions of the family, and it presents a mystery that is a hook I found much more interesting than Nope's. The idea of intruders breaking into your home has some more relatability, so right there, the story is tense and you feel scared. With the intruders being a family of 4, you get some variety in the different kind of threats of the people. The dad is a huge, strong guy. The boy is small but agile and quick and aggressive, so that made it really interesting as well. The action of the home invasion, the attacks, and how the characters have to use anything as a weapon is so unpredictable and exciting, and the gore is really effective as well and makes every scene so haunting. The visuals are incredible as well. There's some really memorable shots all around. The shot of the silhouettes of the intruder family standing dead still at the end of the driveway, just standing there menacingly, is just so haunting. If you saw that at the end of your driveway at night, you just get freaked out instantly. The use of lights and colors is also really strong here. There's some really interesting sets that have like reflections and the tension between tight and open spaces that gives the area's dimension with its surroundings and visuals. Lupita Nyong'o is fantastic here. Her fear and intensity are captivating to follow, and her performance is a huge part of making some of these sequences so compelling. Winston Duke is also great here as more of this kind of doubter in the situation, but he still fights for his family when they're in danger. My main issue here comes from the ending and twist. It's not the most interesting based on how it was set up, and how it works doesn't really feel explained enough in the story. The metaphor and commentary on class division and inequality is strong, but the horror elements and how it's conveyed was very uninteresting to me. Also similar to Nope, the characters aren't the most interesting. Lupita Nyong'o's performance shines in these scenes, but the character herself and her relationship with Winston Duke as her husband, you don't really feel the strong family bond. You feel like you don't know too much about their relationship or much unique about their characters or their family. So there, it was a little less engaging with the characters feeling very undefined. Still, I like this movie. The home invasion action was very exciting and scary to me. There's some powerful commentary, some great performances and visuals, but the reveals are pretty dull and the characters could have used some more depth. But by far my favorite Jordan Peele directed movie is Get Out. A young African-American man visits his white girlfriend's parents for the weekend, where his simmering uneasiness about their reception of him eventually reaches a boiling point. This is his first directed movie, and everything is just great here. It's this weekend away horror concept of going on this trip where things get stranger and more sinister as it goes along, and with that, Peele is able to blend a tense, unsettling atmosphere, characters and story, a great mystery, a great twist, and some really strong social commentary that the story conveys very strongly. Daniel Kaluuya is awesome here. He brings a necessary normalcy to his character, dealing with meeting his girlfriend's parents while feeling uncomfortable with his treatment based on his race. He draws you in, he's got human struggles, so when the craziness starts, you care much more about him than some of the characters in Jordan Peele's other movies, and how the horror elements tie into the racial issues is sickening, and it provides really hateable and disturbing villains. Allison Williams is also really memorable here, and how much she brings to that character at all points of the story is great. The setting of this whole place seems pleasant and harmless enough, while having just enough uncomfortable interactions and characters to keep you unsettled. There's some truly shocking scenes, seeing how different plot elements come together to build to insane moments that become terrifying and captivating. The twist here is really well executed. It makes sense based on what was set up in the story, but it's not too predictable, and how it ties into the themes of the movie together, involving racial injustice and exploitation, is so impressive and impactful. This whole movie just feels like the perfect mix of everything. It's so thrilling, so tragic, so smart and relevant. The performances, atmosphere, and tone are all balanced so well. I do like Peele's other movies, but it's pretty crazy how much better this movie is than the others. It's just such an impressive horror movie, such an impressive directorial debut for Jordan Peele. And when I say I always like to watch horror movies, even though I'm not as passionate about the genre as others, Get Out is an example of why. It's not an all-time favorite or one I rewatch a lot, but it's such a unique movie that after watching it, I'm like, man, that's so cool, that was so creative, and it's just a great, great movie. And that's my ranking though. I'm excited for what Peele does next. There's always something to talk about with all his movies. Even though I don't love all of them, his movies are all very interesting and have something to offer for fans of the horror genre. I'll be right back on Not Quite My Tempo with Chris on WFNP Rosendale, but first here's some more movie music, starting with No Time for Caution by Hans Zimmer from the Interstellar score. Welcome back to Not Quite My Tempo with Chris on WFNP Rosendale. Closing out the show today, I'm going to give you my 3 throwback recommendations for this week. Every week, I like to pick 3 movies I always like to recommend to people and give a little review/recommendation of them. My first throwback recommendation for this week is 2011's Source Code. Directed by Duncan Jones, it follows a soldier who wakes up in someone else's body and discovers he's part of an experimental government program to find the bomber of a commuter train within 8 minutes. This is an awesome time loop movie with Jake Gyllenhaal. Time loop movies always hit for me. The idea of repeating the same day or same series of events over is so interesting to me, and how different movies can take the genre in so many different directions. A dark comedy like Groundhog Day, a rom-com like Palm Springs, and here it gets into the counterterrorism action genre side of things. This idea of being able to revisit the scene of a tragic event through the eyes of someone actually there is so fascinating in how it ties together this sci-fi concept with the law enforcement application. I love the aspect of progress in time loop movies, how the characters learn more and more the more times they go through everything, and how they use that to their advantage. Here, that is done so well. The movie throws you into this scenario, very disoriented, as is Jake Gyllenhaal. He plays this so well. A little behind the scenes fun fact, the director, Duncan Jones, had an earpiece in Gyllenhaal's ear during these scenes, and he'd just play like random music and sounds of static to just throw him off. He really acts so lost and confused so well. It really makes some of these sequences so intense and equally confusing for the audience for a bit too, but in a good way. As it progresses, more twists come along that keep switching up dynamics, how this technology works, and the inner workings of this organization using it and the program. Some of where it goes with this technology is so cool that you should avoid spoilers for, because it's really awesome, really creative. Vera Farmiga is also really great here. Her relationship with Gyllenhaal's character ends up getting a lot of depth, dealing with honor and respect that makes the characters really engaging as well. The sequences as he closes in on his mission get so intense. Because of the evolving story, you feel like you never know what's going to happen next. The movie doesn't let you settle, both with the action on the train and the dialogue. There's always some conflict going on that all feels like it's building so effectively. There's also some strong emotions throughout the story that I also don't want to say too much about, but the biggest surprise about this movie for me is how deep the characters are. There's a lot to get invested in there, but if you like time loop or time travel movies, and you read that concept and thought it sounded really cool, it is. It delivers on everything it's going for and more. Go watch it if you're interested. My next throwback recommendation for this week is 2016's The Nice Guys. Directed by Shane Black, it takes place in 1970s Los Angeles, where a mismatched pair of private eyes, played by Ryan Gosling and Russell Crowe, investigate a missing girl. I also love buddy cop movies. There's so many great duos, Riggs and Murtaugh from Lethal Weapon, Carter and Lee from Rush Hour, and I would put Healy and March from the Nice Guys as one of my favorites as well. Russell Crowe and Ryan Gosling are endlessly entertaining here. Part of what makes buddy cop duos so fun is their personality differences and how they work together. March, played by Gosling, is so disheveled for so much of the movie. He's trying to keep it together and act tough and act like he's got it all figured out, but he ends up getting way out of his depth. But he also isn't just treated as a joke, even though he is really funny. He contributes to the investigation as well. He is so funny, though. Gosling just gets some of the funniest lines of this movie, and just his manic energy and all Gosling brings to his performance is so enjoyable. Russell Crowe as Healy in this is this tough guy that is much more capable than March is. He's got a lot more chill and confidence than March, but he also gives it back to him as he's mouthing off and as they bicker. So seeing them on this case together is all sorts of fun. There's plenty of awesome action with great shootouts and car chases. This is one of those movies you can name multiple awesome sequences from right off the top of your head when you think about it, and there's even more if you really think about it, get more into the movie, but there's just so many good ones that immediately come to mind. The humor has this perfect balance of being really chaotic, especially in some of the visual comedy. There's a scene with an elevator that's really hilarious, but Shane Black's dialogue has the back and forth and a little dry humor as well to give that a different flavor, but it all feels cohesive. The humor all feels authentic in every single scene. I also love the 1970s look and setting here, with the wardrobe, the cars, the guns, all having that retro look. The Hollywood setting also ties into the story well, as this conspiracy they're investigating, taking them into some nasty parts of that world to find what's going on in this conspiracy. The whole private investigator aesthetic in the 70s is just such a cool look that this movie just wouldn't have the same feel if it was set in modern day. The look, as well as just kind of the jazzy, upbeat music, it just brings you into this colorful 1970s Hollywood that the movie really feels connected to so well. Overall, if you are a fan of buddy cop movies and Shane Black movies, this one is very slept on. It didn't do well at the box office. It came at around the same time as the Angry Birds movie in 2016 and Captain America's Civil War, and a little bit around X-Men Apocalypse as well, which probably hurt it. It was during a very busy kind of early summer season. But this is a really fun movie. It will make you want more from this duo in this setting with Shane Black. But I'm thankful we got this movie though. It's just a wonderful gem. My final throwback recommendation for this week is 2019's Ford vs. Ferrari. Directed by James Mangold, it stars Matt Damon as American car designer Carroll Shelby and Christian Bale as driver Ken Miles as they battle corporate interference and the laws of physics to build a revolutionary race car for Ford in order to defeat Ferrari at the 24 Hours of Le Mans in 1966. I was so excited for this movie back in 2019. It was my first year of really getting into film, where I was seeing a lot of stuff in the theaters that year, and getting into more actors and directors' filmographies. And I love Logan from James Mangold. This story sounded pretty interesting to me, and Matt Damon and Christian Bale have been two of my favorite actors for so long now, and this movie delivered for me back then, and it still always hits for me now. I saw this movie multiple times in theaters. I rewatch it all the time now. It's just such a great movie at everything it's trying to be. For this true story, it really threw me into this world of racing and the 24 Hours of Le Mans that I had never actually really heard of before, the concept of a 24-hour race, and seeing how a company like Ford was looking to get into the racing world at this time, and how much of a powerhouse they were challenging with Ferrari, really makes this a great underdog story. Matt Damon and Christian Bale are just outstanding as the two leads here. As a team, they work in different parts of the story so well. Damon plays very much a people person, where Bale is great with cars but not as much of the diplomat. So there's different personalities create tension in the story, but they also make a great team. This corporate side of Ford plays a big role in the story, and how the characters have to navigate it, deal with the suits. There's scenes in conference rooms and offices that are just as interesting as the scenes on the racetracks. All this drama with the characters and the story makes those scenes extra exciting. As difficult as it is to win the race, getting to the starting line is equally challenging, and this movie is all about that, and it is so interesting. When it does come to the races, though, they are excellent. The roar of the engines, the impact of collisions, and the sharpness of these turns just look and sound insane. I also love the design of the cars and that 1960s retro look as well, and the whole movie with these raceway sets just feels so alive on the track, on the side, and in the pit. The tracks also look dangerous too, with these dirt roads at different points, and the tightness at times is really suffocating. You just feel like you're going through all this with the characters, all the danger, all the exhaustion and setbacks and the rain. This movie has so much drama in so many different ways. It's also so entertaining. The music and liveliness is really upbeat. The connections between the characters and their passion for all of this shines through as their motivation. It's so emotional. This is just one of those movies I feel so invested in every time I watch it, with the story, with the characters, this car world, the performances, the visuals, the races. Everything is so exciting, and the movie is so much fun and so impactful. This is probably a top 20 favorite movie of all time for me. Go watch it, it's just tremendous. I'll be right back to close out the show, but first here's some more movie music, starting with The Shire by Howard Shore from the Lord of the Rings score. That's going to be it for me this week on Not Quite My Tempo with Chris on WFNP Rosendale. I'll be back next Friday at 2 p.m. with a review for Yorgos Lanthimos' Begonia and some other movie talk, but until then, have a good week and happy Halloween.